किताब लिखी है इन्होंने, सुनीता जी ने, ये सर्वप्रथम अकेले बांग्लादेश जाना और सारा इन जगहों को घूमना, वहाँ के हालातों को जानते हुए भी, यह एक अपने आप में बड़े हिम्मत की बात थी। और हिंदुस्तान से जो फलसफा बुद्धिज्म का पैदा हुआ है और उसके जो ऐतिहासिक स्थल और प्रमाण वहाँ पर अभी भी मौजूद हैं, तो उससे हमें जोड़ता है। और ये एक ऐसा सफ़र पे हमको ले जाता है जहाँ पता नहीं कितने लोग अभी जाने की स्थिति में उनको नहीं है, जाना चाहे भी तो जाना मुश्किल है। तो ये एक बड़ा महत्वपूर्ण सफ़र है और सबसे बड़ी बात यह है कि ये एक श्रृंखला में एक और कड़ी है जो उन्होंने शुरू किया।
May I now request Mr. Arjit Sharma, editor of the book, to give a brief introduction.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Rupa Publications, Managing Director Mr. Kapish Mehra, the commissioning editor of the book, Mr. Rudranarayan Sharma, I'd like to welcome you all again. Ma'am, something interesting happened the other day. My wife and I were watching The Namesake by Meera Nair. So in the opening sequence of the film, there's a scene wherein an older gentleman strikes up a conversation with Ashok, Mr. Irfan Khan's character, and he says that you're young, you should travel, explore. To which Ashok, again Mr. Khan's character, replies that this is what books are for, to travel without moving an inch. This is what this book does. You travel not by undertaking any physical journey, but by turning the pages. Now, having said that, I'm not saying that one shouldn't travel. It was, after all, Sunita ji's travels that made this book possible.
I would now like to request Ms. Sunita Dwivedi to address the audience and share her thoughts.
Esteemed guests and members of the audience, first of all, I express my gratitude to the International Buddhist Confederation, Secretary General Reverend Jangchuk Shodin Rinpoche, for writing the foreword of the book. To Mr. Abhijit Haldar, Director General, International Buddhist Confederation, for agreeing to grace the book launch as the chief guest. To the guests of honor, Professor K. Variku, Editor, Himalayan and Central Asian Studies. Ambassador Veena Sikari, former High Commissioner to Bangladesh. Professor Shashi Bala, Dean Indology, Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. And to all my friends and colleagues and members of the press who took time off from their busy schedule to be part of this event. My thanks to each one of you. With the publication of this book and 4 earlier ones in a series on the Buddhist heritage of the Asian Silk Road by Rupa Publishers, my travels have covered a considerable part of the colossal Buddhist circuit of Asia, Bangladesh being the southern link in the chain. Little by little, site by site, the book is a modest effort towards unraveling the panorama of the Buddha Marg through Bangladesh. The journey itself started with an ominous earthquake that shook Dhaka, where I had landed barely an hour ago at a hotel in Hathijir locality. However, it turned out to be a good omen. As the trail in Buddha's footsteps progressed through remote villages, unfolding a rich tapestry of ancient viharas and viharikas, stupas and shrines, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Exotic sights unfolded as I moved from Dhaka along radial highways to Dinajpur, Narsingdi, Jeshore, Sonargaon, Komila, Chittagong, and Cox's Bazar. The Basanti celebrations at Puthia Rauch Palace, the joy and revelry of boating at the Padma River front in Rajshahi, a trek through the Santhal village of Hartaki Danga near Dhamoirhat in Naugaon, the weavers' villages along Sita Lakshya River at Tarabo in Kachpur, the monastery of the Chittagong hill tracts, the blue lotus ponds in the villages of Ramu, the buzzing Burmese market of Cox's Bazar, the glistening sea beach of Labuni, and the busy port of Kasturi Ghat in the Mahesh Khali Channel, where hundreds of boats await passengers departing for the myriad islands in the Bay of Bengal. At sunrise in Karotia village of Tangail, a sari hut opens on the river banks of the Lojang River, where villagers bring bundles of home-woven saris for sale. At Sirajganj lies the famous Rabindra Kachari Bari, a memorial to the famed poet Rabindranath Tagore, who is said to have created many of his literary works while living in his grandfather's mansion in Shehzadpur locality. A village hut on way to Dinajpur called Bhaduria Bazar roused my curiosity, as it is said to be the ancestral place of the Bengali Bhaduris. I wondered if the Bhaduris of India still had familiar links with the village. At Dhamrai Bazar, an interesting sight captures one's attention, that of a colossal Rath, a mobile temple dedicated to Lord Jagannath. In the great chain of Buddhist Asia, the Mahashrinkla of Bauddhic Asia, Bangladesh forms a crucial link, having a unique role in its spread and in creating a knowledge base across its chain of viharas. The Mahaviharas of Jagdala, Somapura, Halud, Bhasu, Sitakot, Menamati, Bikrampur, Sitakundo, Pandita, which gave birth to great scholars under the patronage of Bengal rulers. Their close proximity with sites in West Bengal at Jagjivanpur, Raktamritika, Mogol Mari shows the dense network of sites along river network. I am also indebted to several journals, anthologies, and institutions for promoting my work on the Buddhist heritage of the Asian Silk Road by inviting me to present my work at international conferences and publishing my travel accounts, foremost among them being Professor K. Variku, editor, Himalayan and Central Asian Studies, Professor Arvind Gupta, director, Vivekananda International Foundation, IIC International Research Division Publication Editor of India Central Asia, Professor Akhtar Hussain, India Central Asia Foundation Director, Professor Ramakant Dwivedi, Department of Inner Asian Studies, GNU, Dr. Mahesh Chandra Devata, Academy of International Studies, Jamia Millia, Professor Nasir Raza Khan, and Professor Rashmi Dorai Swami. Deshkal Society Secretary Dr. Sanjay Kumar, Professor Kusum Raya Bodh Gaya Temple Trust, Dr. Rajesh of Pravasi Indians, and late Professor B.B. Kumar and Jane Roy Sahab of Asta Bharti. With these words, I leave the book in the hands of the readers. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your wonderful thoughts, ma'am. May I now request Professor Variku to share his insights with us.
And mounts across Bangladesh. Sunita ji has been actively associated with our journal Himalayan and Central Asian Studies, which completes this year 30 years of its regular and uninterrupted publication. She has been contributing her learned papers on the subjects of cultural heritage, particularly the Buddhist heritage in Asia, in various special issues of this. Sunita ji gives a detailed introduction to the book, throwing light on the doctrine of Buddha, its spread, antiquity of Buddha in Bengal, travels of the Buddha on the Bengal Highway, Bengal's link to Silk Road, Tibet, China, Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia, and the royal patterns of Buddha in Bengal. Such a glorious Buddhist presence was annihilated by the Islamic invaders, Ghaznavids, Ghurids and Bakhtiyar Khilji, who in the words of contemporary historian Badauni and Tawakat Nasri, I quote, organized massacres of Buddhist monks, destroyed idol temples of the infidels, and erected masjids and other buildings, unquote. The Buddhist monasteries and establishments collapsed and turned into mounds of dust. The author has collated the results of her field studies with the information gathered from a large number of sources, both primary and secondary, related to the subject.
Thank you for your insightful words, sir. Now I would like to request Dr. Shashi Bala to share her thoughts with us.
She was introduced as a traveler, as a photographer. But I always see in her not just that, but a passionate, a dedicated personality, a dedicated soul. Bold and brave. Otherwise, how can you expect somebody to go to explore in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh? Writing a book like this is not just authoring a book. It's something beyond that. I always say that if history is not written, it is forgotten. These were the sacred places, vibrant with dharma, and today they are archaeological sites. I don't know how many years will they stay even as sites.
May I request Professor Veena Sikri to address the audience and share her insights on the book with us.
Good evening, dear friends, Sunita ji, Rakesh ji, all my distinguished co-panelists and members of the audience. It is a great honor to be invited by Sunita ji to speak today, especially because her book is so lively. It brings back to life all the years that I spent in Bangladesh between 2003, 2006, because I have actually personally visited almost all the areas that Sunita ji had mentioned in her book, whether it is Mahastangarh, Paharpur, Mainamati. All these places were very much part of the areas that I traveled to, and I think that many, many more of us in India should travel to these areas and acquaint themselves with the strong Buddhist heritage of Bangladesh. In fact, you know, it's something that many of us don't realize, that how the way in which the Vedic civilization of India extended to Bangladesh, to what is today Bangladesh, is something that is not often thought about. In fact, sometimes people have the opposite view and they refer to some part of the Brahmanas who have said that Bangladesh was not a part of the Vedic civilization. But I can tell you that if you, a detailed analysis by many scholars has shown how even in the Ramayana there is a mention of the links between Ayodhya and the Janpads of Pundrabardhan and Vanga in Bangladesh. And this area of the Pundra region of Bangladesh is actually today's Bogra, today's Rajshahi, today's Dinajpur. These were actually part of the old Janapad, which had linkages even with Ayodhya. So they were, and in fact in the Mahabharata there's mention again of how at Princess Draupadi Swayamvar, there were people from Pundra and Vanga who were there, who were present. So it really reveals how we have these ancient links, but these have not been developed. We don't look upon it as a part of our own ancient history of the, you know, the vast Indian subcontinent, which had links stretching to every part. And honestly, when you visit the museum in Mainamati, when you visit some of the collections in Rajshahi, in the Virendra Museum, you realize, because the exquisite sculptures which are present there, the exquisite way in which the ancient kingdoms in Pundra, Vanga and others, they had silver coins, not only with the stamp of Lord Buddha, but even Lord Ganesh. So you had a strong Hindu-Buddhist culture prevailing in the entire region of Bangladesh, what is today Bangladesh, and we really should develop those linkages a lot. Sunita ji mentioned Dhamrai in her speech, and I must tell you that Dhamrai today is a town worth visiting. It is very close to Dhaka, but it is the place in Bangladesh where you see the last remnants of the Pala dynasty, and the sculptures of Pala dynasty. I have many of them in my collection at home. Sunita ji, I'll show them to you next time. This is possibly the last 1 or 2 generations who are going to be doing those sculptures. The Raths that you mentioned in Dhamrai, in Dhamrai. In fact, during the time that I was there as High Commissioner, I had that Rath renovated because it was crumbling, it was falling apart, and I sent the sculptors from there to Jagannath. They went and met the actual people who made the Raths, who make the Raths in Odisha, in Jagannath, in Puri. And they visited Lord Jagannath's temple, they met the specialists there, they visited other parts of Puri. And then they came back, and some people came from Puri, from Lord Jagannath's temple, and they rebuilt that Rath using modern techniques. So what they have today, the Rath that they use today in the festival every year, the chariot festival every year, is actually the new Rath which was built during the time that I was there between, in a very strong collaboration between Lord Jagannath's temple and the people of Dhamrai. So this is a very vivid memory from me, and you have Sukanto Banek and people who are still there, who still do the sculptures, but they also are very despairing that in the next generation whether their children will continue with this tradition or not. And so the Dhamrai sculpture tradition going back to the Pala dynasty and beyond will then just fade away. I think that I would also like to talk about, Professor Shachiwala mentioned about Atish Dipankar Sri Gyan. And I think this is another very, very strong tradition which has its origins in Bangladesh, because Atish Dipankar was born in Vikrampur region of Bangladesh. And then from there he, of course in those days, even the Pala dynasty, they extended far beyond what is present-day Bangladesh. They covered in fact parts of Bihar and parts of Odisha. And Atish Dipankar was actually nominated by the Pala king, as the Mahipal king, as Chancellor of Vikramshila University in Bihar. He was such a learned scholar. And then he actually spread Buddhism into Tibet. And he actually is the person who is still regarded very highly in Tibet and considered as one of the founders of the Gelug sect. And the place where he lived, which is not too far from Lhasa, and he died there in 1053 in the 11th century. So he's a very, very respected and learned person. Today there's an Atish Dipankar University of Science and Technology in Dhaka. So they have tried to maintain the tradition, but if you even look up in the Banglapedia, which is the official Bangla encyclopedia, but still if you look it up and they talk about Atish Dipankar, they tell you about all that he did. But if you visit his hometown, the title there is, an atheist scholar, Nastik Panditer Bhite. So it is a great importance today to recognize this shared heritage, because unless we recognize the shared heritage, and the people of Bangladesh and India should collectively recognize the shared heritage, because this is a very important source of our common friendship, and it should actually remain like that, because if we base ourselves on this shared heritage, then a lot of things become so similar. The traditions are similar, the work is similar, what we look for is similar, and we can then spend a lot of effort in recalling the similarity between the sculptures that you have today in Mainamati, in Mahastangad, in Paharpur, with what we have in many, many parts of India, particularly in eastern India. I think that Sunita ji has done a tremendous task in carrying this forward, in bringing out these similarities, and her meticulous recording. I don't know how many notes and diaries you must have kept, because you've really been very meticulous in recording all the places that you have visited. It's much more than just a travelogue. It's a very scholarly approach to the shared traditions, and you have brought it out very well. And today, the Buddhist circuit is actually a very important part of our own realization, of our own recreation and appreciation of our civilizational heritage. Actually, ever since, even after I retired from government and I was in Jamia Millia Islamia University, I set up a group there called the South Asia Women's Network, SWAN, and we have been active for the last 17 years. We are women from 9 countries of South Asia, all the 8 SAARC countries and also Myanmar. And we realize how much of the shared tradition we have. And one of the projects that we are working on today is for rural women, working in the area of rural tourism and bringing up how the Buddhist circuit in the Himalayan region and in Sri Lanka, all across South Asia, in fact, can be kept alive by developing rural tourism on the women-led rural tourism model. And this is actually a project which we have started, and we are in early May, we are going to have a very important meeting in Arunachal Pradesh, in Tawang, on this matter to carry it further with participation from all the South Asian countries to see how we can carry this further, to realize how creating friendship, creating understanding means also understanding your shared past and bringing it into the living present. And we shouldn't have this distinction between the past and the present. We need to bring the past into the living present, and that is how the traditions of many parts of Bangladesh, including the sculptors of Dhamrai, including the people in Menamati who still do traditional work. And we have we've seen how these traditions spread through Bangladesh, through Sri Lanka, into Southeast Asia. So this is a great crossing point between South Asia and Southeast Asia, because it is the scholars who carried it after Emperor Ashok and his disciples. They carried this tradition across into Southeast Asia, and Bangladesh has been a very important point in carrying the tradition across land and across the sea, both. So they have played a very big role in carrying right up to China even. And we've seen even the Chinese scholars who came to this region, they have in their texts written about these regions of Bangladesh and the traditions they had and how that is so relevant for today. So I'd like to once again congratulate you, Sunita ji, and to say how I hope that your book will serve as an important guide to those who want to bring it into the present and carry this tradition forward as a way of strengthening the friendship all across South Asia because of this important shared tradition. I wish you the very best. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us, ma'am. Now I would like to request Mr. Abhijit Haldar to give a keynote address and share his thoughts with us.
Good evening to all of you here. It is indeed a privilege and an honor for me to be part of this celebration. I call this a celebration because anything to do with filling the gap or vacuum in the history of Buddhism, wherever that may be, in the form of research or in the form of a book, calls for a celebration. And this book is all about it. Wonderful job done by Sunita ji. And as the other speakers mentioned, it's unbelievable, the way she has traveled across cities in a place which could be alien in some ways, and mapped out the roads, the locations of the mounds, the viharas, the monasteries. I guess if you have a map of Bangladesh before you and get into a room, open this book and spend about an hour, 2 hours, from page 1 till the last page, you'll have a fantastic journey of Buddhism in Bangladesh. I think I'll take you a little away from this subject. I'll get back to the book a little later, because in my opinion, as we all talk about what needs to be done in future, whatever has happened in history has happened, but where do we go from here on? And in order to understand that, there has to be public traction, there has to be government traction, there has to be attention of the general janta towards the way forward. And in understanding Buddhism or Buddha Dhamma, what is it all about? It's a philosophy. And that is where we do some work in the International Buddhist Confederation, in the IBC. One of the things which we do is to promote, preserve, and to project the Buddhist heritage of India. And this we do primarily in countries abroad, especially in Southeast Asian countries. It's a two-pronged approach which we follow. One is to hold large international conferences on Buddhism in India. So we started in 2023 with something called the Global Buddhist Summit, the GBS, which was inaugurated by the Honorable Prime Minister at that time. And the Dalai Lama, of course, attended the event. We had the second Global Buddhist Summit this year in January. Subsequently, we started something called the Asian Buddhist Summit because the Asian spirit, tradition, culture, value systems are different from the rest of the world. So we started the Asian Buddhist Summit, which was inaugurated by the Honorable President of India. We did the Shanghai Cooperation Organization conference, which is very interesting because the SCO countries include the Central Asian countries, which are primarily Muslim countries. But fantastic data they had on Buddhist heritage because all these countries fell on the Silk Route. So we had professors from Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan with fantastic narration about Buddhism which we were not aware about. Of course, we had professors from China, from universities in China, and they were talking about Jataka tales and as Dr. Shashi Bala mentioned, the richness of Buddhist culture which has come from India. The second thing which we do is we take the holy relics of the Buddha to different countries. Now this started on a very interesting note when Prime Minister Modi was inaugurating an international airport at Kushinagar, which is the last place where the Buddha attained his Mahaparinirvana, where he passed away. And there was a large delegation of monks from Sri Lanka who had come, and they had brought a relic of the Buddha from Sri Lanka. And there was a lot of fanfare, a lot of excitement with the relics there, and PM Modi just turned around and told the culture minister that, we are a land of the relics and we have relics all over the country. So, it's a good thing they brought the relics here, but why don't we take the relics out of the country and get to reach out to people in Buddhist countries who can get blessed by the relics. So we started this project. In 22, we took the holy relics to Mongolia. And it's done in a proper coordinated way. The government is involved. There is a minister who is nominated to lead the delegation. The relic goes in its capacity as head of state. Actually like the head of state. It flies in an Indian Air Force aircraft. It will either be a C-17 or C-130 or whatever it is. Just like it happens in the case of a head of state, there is an advanced security liaison team which goes 2 weeks before to that country, maps out the situation there, the route. Dr. Shashi Bala was with me on the 2022 Mongolia trip, I remember, yeah. And what I was coming to is the reverence, the level, degree of reverence which Buddhists have towards the relic is something which is shocking. It really took me off. I mean, I'm sure you would have realized. All the ministers were at the airport. There was a long queue of vehicles as if, the Buddha has landed up. And people were coming in from far and wide in Mongolia, traveling for 4 days, 5 days. In fact, the Mongolian government asked us to extend the stay of the holy relic. After that, of course, there are a lot of interesting stories, and as it happens, magic happens in the air. Every time we took the relic out, there was something happening, a play of the nature. In Mongolia, for instance, there was a formation of clouds in the sky which looked like the face of an elephant, which is supposed to be a holy sign. So Twitter handles freaked out, on social media. The last day, there was a rainbow which came out, which is again supposed to be a holy sign. So for me, it was a very unique realization of the essence of the degree of reverence which people have in Buddhist countries towards the Buddha. And that is what we need. That is what is required. Of course, after Mongolia, we took the relics to Thailand, we took it to Vietnam, we took it to Bhutan, we took it to a small autonomous republic in Russia called Kalmykia, which is a Buddhist republic. We recently took it to Sri Lanka. And now we are going back to Mongolia this year, probably in June. In Thailand, we had 5 million people paying their respects to the holy relic. In Vietnam, we had 17 million people. There were 103, 104-year-old parents being brought in their arms by their family members to get blessed. There are people standing in queue since 4:30 in the morning because the door of the monastery opens at 6:30 and it's raining profusely, holding umbrellas. So, By doing this, we are trying to generate, of course, goodwill vis-a-vis India. That's one part of it. But the critical part of it is to get these people blessed and in return have them come back and return to India and visit the various sites in India and enrich our Buddhist heritage.
It's a great pleasure to be here as a part of the book launch written by Sunita Dwivedi. It's not just a travelogue; it's history brought to life, and the documentation that she has done, it's amazing. And especially when I came to know about all her travels, Central Asia is okay, it's not that difficult, but going to Afghanistan, Pakistan and Bangladesh, it's really very, very difficult, very challenging. I don't know how she could manage it. And it's not just a travelogue, it inspires us about the soft power. People have been talking about soft power, but what is that and how to utilize it? This book is a very, I think, kind of a source for people to understand how to have better connections with Bangladesh. India and Bangladesh, they are neighbors, of course. So we cannot be always in conflict, but we are, unfortunately. So these are the things that we should learn and use it as the soft power. It's in one of the speeches of the Prime Minister, I heard him, I was also there in Bodh Gaya, and he said, we need Buddha, not Yuddha. Hame Buddha chahiye, Yuddha nahi. So the whole world is shattered by bombs. You can see how many people, how many lives are shattered. Nobody likes to fight, have wars. So sad for the world, the geopolitical ambitions, it's unsatiable hunger of the people. What we need is, we need something from our forefathers, from our heritage, from the great men, from like the Buddhist path. We should understand how our people, our acharyas, our Buddhist monks, how they traveled abroad, raising civilizations and cultures. They never destroyed anything, but so much is destroyed. Pilgrimage, the places of pilgrimage have become dead sites, and people, I feel very bad when I see people wearing shoes and having a good picture and stepping on the statues or the places. It's not good. These are places of pilgrimage, and government should also understand it, that people come from abroad to visit sites, Buddhist sites in India. Buddhist, I should not call it site, I should call it sacred places. They want to visit these places as devotees, not as tourists.
इस पुस्तक का महत्व, सबसे सर्वप्रथम तो मैं सुनीता जी को बधाई देता हूँ, और मुझे सौभाग्य मिला उनके साथ कई देशों की यात्रा एक साथ करने का। न सिर्फ मध्य एशिया के कजाकिस्तान, किर्गिज रिपब्लिक, उज़्बेकिस्तान और भी देशों में, तो उनके अंदर अद्भुत प्रतिभा है और साहस है, और वो साहस दिखता है उनकी पुस्तकों में। पिछले कई वर्षों से लगातार वो बुद्धिज़्म के ऊपर, बुद्धिज़्म संस्कृति, बुद्धिज़्म एज ए धर्म, बुद्धिज़्म एज ए जीवन शैली, बुद्धिज़्म एज ए विचार, कि किस तरह से साहित्य, समाज और किसी हद तक राजनीति में भी बुद्धिज़्म का जो प्रभाव रहा है, तो उसकी विवेचना, उसका विश्लेषण उन्होंने बहुत अच्छे से किया है और उसको संदर्भ में लाई। अब आ जाते हैं आज की किताब पर, जो आपने कहा कि शेयर्ड हिस्ट्री की व्याख्या की जाए, तो शेयर्ड हिस्ट्री यही है कि विचार की, संस्कृत के कई वेरिएबल्स होते हैं, वो तमाम वेरिएबल्स कॉमन है हमारे और बंगाली दोस्तों के बीच। और जो पूरा कल्चरल कॉम्प्लेक्स है साउथ एशिया, भारत, बांग्लादेश, म्यांमार, नेपाल, भूटान, ये जो कॉमन कल्चर कॉम्प्लेक्स है उसमें से एक हिस्से की जो बहुत अच्छी अध्ययन सुनीता जी ने किया है, जिसमें कि उन्होंने उन तमाम विचारों को परिप्रेक्ष्य में रखा हुआ है। और आज की जो स्थिति है, वर्तमान स्थिति है, उस वर्तमान स्थिति से अगर हम उसको जोड़ के देखें, जैसे कि कहा गया, कम से कम इतना तो आवश्यक है और ये हमारा दायित्व भी बनता है कि हम वो तमाम स्थानों का, तमाम तीर्थ स्थलों का डिजिटलाइजेशन कर लें और डिजिटलाइजेशन करने के पश्चात उसको परिप्रेक्ष्य में रखें। और क्योंकि आने वाली पीढ़ियों के लिए वो एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण सोर्स होगा बुद्धिज्म, संस्कृति, समाज, विचार, धर्म को समझने के लिए।
The book on Buddha's Trail in Bangladesh by Mrs. Sunita Dwivedi is a milestone in the sense that whenever we talk about Buddhist history, culture or Buddhist diplomacy, generally we refer to countries and regions where Buddhism has been dominant religion. For example, the countries of Southeast Asia or countries in Indochina or Sri Lanka. The unique point about Sunita ji's research has been that she has covered regions and countries, for example Central Asia and Bangladesh, where Buddhism is no longer practiced by large number of people. It used to be dominant religion in the past, in the ancient times, but perhaps no longer. So this book revives and tells about the lost heritage of Buddhism in the countries like Bangladesh, and of course another book is on Central Asia. This is the unique USP of this book, and the research is very meticulous. She has detailed each and everything that she came across, the various sites with beautiful photographs and interviews from the people. So this is a great achievement.